Okay, welcome back, class. So we are just hauling right through all of these diseases, and now we are in chapter 25. We are going to talk about diseases of the digestive system. So your digestive system starts with chewing food in your mouth. So we're going to start with talking about our mouth. Dental caries is another word for cavities or tooth decay. This can be formed by different bacteria, actinomyces and streptococcus mutans, which are able to form a plaque. So it just starts growing on a person's tooth. And if the bacteria aren't brushed away or the food source isn't brushed away, the bacteria will continue growing as a biofilm, producing acid, which can break down the tooth enamel. Gingivitis is an infection of the gums. So here you can see the plaque actually growing onto the gums. This can progress down to periodontitis, where the gums will actually be inflamed and bleeding. So you can see instead of having these nice healthy gums, they have been worn down and from infection. This great reason why people should brush and floss every day, see a dentist regularly. Okay, then a lot of these other diseases we're going to talk about are going to be, a lot of them are going to go through a fecal oral cycle. That means that it is from someone's feces, bacteria probably from their normal large intestine biota, that is then shed into water that is being used or a food source or something, unwashed hands when they're preparing food, that then gets into someone's oral cavity, into someone's mouth, and leads to disease. So a lot of these can be interrupted by effective sanitation procedures. So, if you are camping, you are not going to use the river as a restroom. You're going to build yourself a latrine a sufficient distance away from water sources. If you are cooking food or preparing food or touching food, you always wash your hands before you touch food. Always wash your hands after going to the restroom. Even public health measures like wastewater treatment and drinking water treatment. Within these diseases, we have a few different terms. Infection is when the pathogen, a living pathogen, is being eaten. You have a pathogen that is going to grow in the gastrointestinal tract. Intoxication is when the pathogen may have been killed by cooking, but the toxin it made is still there. So intoxication is when a toxin is ingested. You don't have any bacterial growth. All you have is a toxin. Dysentery, we've already discussed, is diarrhea that includes blood and mucus. And gastroenteritis is an inflammation of the stomach and intestinal mucosa. I'm sorry, my dog is right beside me snoring. I hope you can't hear that. But if you do, I'm sorry. Okay, so first let's talk about staphylococcal food poisoning. This is an intoxication. So the person who is preparing the food has this bacteria on their hands. They don't wash their hands. They just go and touch the food. And that bacteria is transmitted from their hands onto the food that they're preparing. The bacteria is allowed to grow, so the food is left out at room temperature, and the bacteria just grow and grow and grow. As they're growing, they're making lots of toxins. Then, if the food is cooked, the bacteria is killed, but the toxins are not killed. They're not destroyed, so the toxins are still there. So it goes through this chart of the food is cooked, the food is contaminated, the food is left at room temperature. Even if you cook it again, you won't get rid of the toxins. Then the food is eaten, and in 1 to 6 hours, the intoxication occurs. So 1 to 6 hours later, everyone in your group is racing for the bathroom. Cholera is a disease caused by Vibrio cholerae. This is a bacteria that can create an enterotoxin, which is a type of exotoxin, that causes host cells to secrete water and electrolytes. That water and electrolytes is going to be secreted into your large intestine, where it will appear as diarrhea. And then Clostridioides difficile-associated diarrhea. This is one we've talked about before with an extended use of antibiotics. Those antibiotics kill competing bacteria. The Clostridioides is just going to grow as an opportunistic pathogen in that situation. This is a problem in hospitals and nursing homes. If you work in a public health patient setting, you probably will at some point encounter a patient with this. Then shigellosis. This causes dysentery, sometimes called bacillary dysentery. Shigella produces a toxin called Shiga toxin that can destroy intestinal tissue and lead to a lot of bowel movements. 20 bowel movements per day, I imagine, is more than a lot more than what you're used to dealing with. So here is an example. Here is your bacteria, or here is your intestinal tract, the epithelia of your intestinal tract. And this bacteria is going to come in here, form a little membrane ruffle, sink right in, start multiplying within the cell. It's able to also use that actin to rearrange to go from cell to cell without being exposed to the immune system. This cell will then be killed, and so that will release mucus and blood into the intestines. Then salmonellosis, caused by Salmonella, Salmonella enterica or Salmonella typhimurium. This will lead to diarrhea. So let's go through what this is going to do. Salmonella will similarly form a membrane ruffle, infect the epithelial cells of the intestinal tract, start multiplying within the cell, but then it's not going to kill the cell, release blood and mucus. It is then able to spread to the lymphatic system through the lymph nodes into the spleen and into the bloodstream. So typhoid fever is a more virulent form of Salmonella typhi that can be spread through feces of humans, more endemic in places with poor sanitation. It leads to high fever, diarrhea, and can infect the spleen and the liver. And again, typhoid fever, we have a lot of words that have that typh sounding. Make sure you're able to keep this name straight. E. coli gastroenteritis is sometimes called traveler's diarrhea. This is going to be a more mild, like a milder form of cholera, a watery diarrhea. Shiga toxin E. coli is an E. coli that has picked up a Shiga toxin, so it's able to produce dysentery similar to Shigella. And then gastroenteritis, this can be caused by several different bacteria. Campylobacter gastroenteritis caused by Campylobacter jejuni. Yersinia gastroenteritis caused by Yersinia enterocolitica. Clostridium perfringens gastroenteritis and Bacillus cereus gastroenteritis. Then H. pylori, this bug we've talked about before. So this is a bacteria that causes Helicobacter peptic ulcer disease. So this bacteria is able to produce an enzyme called urease. Urease is able to neutralize stomach acid, which allows the bacteria then to grow in the stomach without being killed by stomach acid. It also allows other bacteria to start growing. It can be associated with causing peptic ulcers and may or may not be associated with stomach cancer. Then some viral diseases of the digestive system. First, we have mumps. Mumps is caused by the mumps virus, which is a painful sweating of the parotid salivary glands. You can see his salivary glands are swollen here. It can be transmitted through saliva and respiratory secretions. And there is an injection, there is a vaccine available for mumps. Hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver. There are several different viruses that can cause hepatitis. Hepatitis A has a fecal oral cycle, so it is shed through fecal droppings, inappropriate or insufficient hand washing. HBV, hepatitis B, is parenteral. It can also be transferred through sexual contact. And hepatitis C is also parenteral and can be, it can develop a chronic infection, chronic hepatitis. Then viral gastroenteritis would include rotavirus, which is commonly seen in children. There is a vaccine for that. And norovirus, which is sometimes associated with like cruise ships, which has a fecal oral cycle, and it can travel through aerosols that are produced from vomiting. Then some protozoans, Giardiasis, caused by Giardia lamblia. We talked about that, how it causes diarrhea. It lives in warm water. It is endemic in our area. Amoebic dysentery caused by Entamoeba histolytica, which is also found in contaminated water. It causes amoebiasis. Cyclosporal diarrheal infection caused by Cyclospora cayetanensis will produce a few days of watery diarrhea. And cryptosporidiosis caused by cryptosporidium, which can be transferred through contaminated water. Then tapeworms. We've got a bunch of tapeworms we're going to talk about here. These are all a bunch of things that you'll be able to see that last week of lab. So tapeworm is a worm that can, a helminth that can live in the intestines. Eggs can be passed through feces. It can also be associated with undercooked beef, pork, and fish. So a lot of restaurants will have a warning label on it about don't eat undercooked food. This includes Taenia saginata, which is an adult beef tapeworm from eating undercooked beef. This can live in a human for 25 years and grow to be 6 meters long. That's 18 feet. Chances are that is wider than the room that you are sitting in. Taniosolium is a pork tapeworm. It can also cause cysticercosis. Ophthalmic cysticercosis is what is going on here. It can also lead to neurocysticercosis, which would be when it is growing in the central nervous system. This is super serious. And then Diphyllobothramlatum is a fish tapeworm. I'm sorry for my dog's noises over there. Hydatid disease is caused by a tiny tapeworm, Echinococcus granulosus, which is associated with eating the flesh of a deer that have been infected. There are several species of hookworms that can then feed on the blood in the intestinal wall. They're going to be eating your blood, which will leave you with insufficient red blood cells, so your patient will be anemic and lethargic. Pinworms, or Enterobius vermicularis, these are worms that will live in the intestinal area, but can then move out of the anus to lay eggs. So the way that you find out if your kid has pinworms is to, go in the dark when they're sleeping and, peek in their diaper and see if there's any little worms moving around in there. Sometimes people will put tape on there to see if it catches any worms or eggs. Ascariasis, caused by Ascaris lumbricoides, which can live on your intestinal nutrients. So it'll be eating your food instead of letting you have your nutrients. This is a more tropical helminth. And then trichonellosis or trichinosis, which is caused by Trichinella spiralis, which is a roundworm. We have a few diseases called trick, so please don't get this associated with the sexually transmitted infection. Trichonellosis is a helminth, which is associated with undercooked pork. Okay, so I will meet you back for your very last lecture video. We'll cover the urinary and reproductive systems. I'll see you later. Let me know if you have any questions.